Welcome to our question this episode this evening with Dan, the music man. I'm so excited to have him on the show tonight, especially during Dyslexic Awareness Month. But before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners across all the lands we're meeting on tonight and to pay my respects to elders, both past, present and emerging. Welcome to the show, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, Shae. It's a real pleasure to be here and a privilege. And hello to everybody out there. Rocking Dan Teaching Man here.
I'm so excited to hear a bit about your story and your support during National Dyslexic Awareness Month and our Faces of Dyslexia campaign. So
yeah,
what were some of the reasons that you put your face to our campaign this year?
Oh, wow, yeah. So dyslexia is it's very important to me, obviously being dyslexic and parent of dyslexic and lots of dyslexic relatives. So, and it's something that's not as rare as people think. So it's the most common learning difficulty. So it's something that we need to know about and people need to know about and teachers need to know about. And so that's why, raising awareness and then also helping people understand how to best help dyslexics and teach dyslexic children. So I thought it would be great to put my face to it. And I've always enjoyed actually creative arts and photography, so I thought I'd give a go at doing a self-portrait, and I really enjoyed the experience, so that's why I did it.
We were so pleased to receive your self-portrait. It was fantastic, and really with your guitar in the picture, really I thought illustrated what you're all about at the moment. Yeah. And you were diagnosed at the age of 9, which back in the 80s.
In the 80s.
I was going to say, I'm like, I hope I've got that right. I think we're around the similar age. Around the 80s was
1995. No. No, it wasn't, but that was through a lot of advocacy from my parents and especially my mother. So, the saying that behind dyslexia doesn't come with an instruction book, it comes with a mother who never gives up. So, obviously, my parents noticed that I was having difficulty with words, which is the literal translation from the Greek of dyslexia, difficulty with words. And so I went through primary school, and it was in year 4 that, I was taken off to an educational psychologist and got my diagnosis. So that was actually a huge moment in my life. Because up until then, I just thought I was really, unintelligent or dumb or stupid, because I think so much of your early experiences in school, how you relate to yourself and see yourself is if you can read and write well, and if you can't, you don't think you're particularly intelligent. So the important part of getting the diagnosis was that I now had a reason for why I was struggling. It wasn't to do with a lack of intelligence. So that was actually I do remember being in the room when the news was broken to me, and it was like this huge. It was actually a physical weight being lifted off my shoulders, and then it started to be explained to me, who I was, and so it was a great day, but it was it was partway already through a long journey, which I think I tried to capture in the self-portrait. This is actually at the age of 9 when I was having a really bad day, and it was an adult who was dyslexic saw this, and they talked to me, and they said something along the lines like, "You're in a dark tunnel right now, and you can only see a little speck of light. But one day that light will shine really bright, and it won't just be a little speck of light anymore." So, in my portrait, that's sort of coming out of the darkness, that sort of thing. So that was really huge, actually, to hear from an adult who was dyslexic, and they know where you've been and they know where you can get to. So, that was significant. So some significant points in my early life. But I can certainly say that the first, all of school was a challenge, and there is no easy way out of dyslexia. And the way we can help people, children and adults with dyslexia, is learn about how the brain learns to read and act on that. So that's kind of why I got into teaching too. So.
And so when you were 9, did that diagnosis help with your self-confidence, you think, and that comment from the adult that had dyslexia around the tunnel?
It did, it definitely helped. But by then, you've had, was it 3? You're in your 5th year of school, so kinder 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're already I was already shattered person. Like self-esteem and everything took a massive battering because you can't access the curriculum, and you can see other children progressing, and you're like, well, why can't I? Like, what's the problem? So I mean, it was a great milestone, and talking to adults, and it's really amazing as an adult myself when I can talk to children and say, look, I know where you've been, and then they look at you and they, it's helpful. Yeah.
So is that what led you to become a teacher? Because it's not the easiest degree to get as a dyslexic. I tried and didn't pass first year, so left and didn't become a teacher.
Well, I didn't attempt that until I was mature age. So I had a bit of maturity, which I think I needed, and life experience, and before I did. But I just sort of drifted in and out of different things. And so I think it was my late grandmother, she used to tell me that I'd be a great teacher. So I sort of, that it was always a little seed in the back of my mind. But, going into schools was something I dreaded. So there's no way I would have done it straight out of school. But it was just a little seed that was planted, and then I was just, doing casual jobs, casual work here and there, and it was my parents again who said, well, why don't you give it a go? So I did, and
yeah. Sounds like you're a wonderful teacher with a lot of insight into supporting students across the spectrum of challenges to all students have challenges. In some areas. We're
exactly
not all perfect.
Right.
And so being assessed at that age, had anyone else in your family been assessed, or were you the first one and then your family put pieces together that there might have been others?
Oh, I was the first, but because dyslexia is genetic, so it's obviously it's come from my father's side, although he was never formally diagnosed. And so you've got a 50-50 chance if you've got a dyslexic parent that your child's going to end up dyslexic. So not all my siblings are. So that's luck of the draw.
2 of us out of 5.
But, wow.
Yeah. So it makes and one of my nephews so far. So it makes an interesting table conversation.
Yeah. And I think the concerning thing is that it's quite often not till later in life that people are identified or they get the diagnosis. So getting early, identifying children early and giving them good quality intervention is vital. So that's why Dyslexia Awareness Month and things like Dear Dyslexia and Code Red, which I'm a member of, is so important.
Yeah, it is. The more voices out there raising awareness, the better it can be for all of us, I think. And you did a lot of that last year when you took leave from work and you travelled around the country singing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I also have a YouTube channel called Rocking Dan Teaching Man. So I guess music for me was kind of an escape from school. So I tried to combine teaching with music, and to help children learn, because there's a lot of research into the benefits of movement and music and repetition in helping with the learning process, and also helping children find the optimal level of awareness, so they're not too lethargic or they're not too up. So yeah, that can do lots of wonderful things, music and movement. So it was a few years ago when I wrote a song about the friends of 10, the addition facts that add up to 10. And I recorded that and found a program and made clip art, dance and everything, and uploaded it to YouTube. And then it got quite a few views. So, something that I wanted to just do with my kids in the classroom ended up being something a bit bigger. And then I was writing other songs about friendship, what makes a good friend, kindness and vows and all sorts of things. So I've got quite a few songs now. I've got, I think, 3 albums out. And so then I took long service leave last year in term 3 and just put a message out on Facebook if anyone wants me to come, and I was overwhelmed. Like I had I think about 170 teachers and schools want me to come, but
wow,
get to everybody. So I think it was 37 schools in about 6 weeks in Australia, and I just drove around playing mainly to kinder to year 2 all my songs. So that was a lot of fun, and it was great to see. It was amazing to hear children singing songs that I had written, and they knew all the words. So that was really exciting. I also got to see some amazing schools, and actually tour around and see some teachers teaching in action, some multisensory structured language, like so at Bentley West School down in Melbourne. That was fantastic to see how they structure their literacy block, and they explicitly teach the alphabetic principle and the alphabetic code, and the use of teaching the big 6 of reading, starting with oral language and the phonemic awareness and the alphabetic principle and vocabulary, fluency and comprehension. So it really enhanced my understanding of teaching as well. So yeah, it was amazing.
And so do you think this could be a new career path for you, or you're sticking it out with teaching?
Oh no, I'll definitely stick to teaching, because as exciting as it is to get up on stage and play to kids and have them sing and dance, there's also this something that I find. So there was one school, I think there was 400 kids, and I stopped playing and they kept singing, like a real rock concert. They were singing the Friends of 10. And that was quite an amazing buzz for me. But the bigger buzz that I get is, when you're working with kids and they finally get it. And, they may have had some challenges with understanding the alphabetic code and mapping sounds to symbols. And then through, that really good direct instruction and explicit teaching, they're able to read and write and spell words that they thought they never could. So I remember there was one child, and they wanted to spell the word telescope, and they weren't that confident. And just through the work that we've been doing with syllables and segmenting and blending sounds, they were able to write the word. And then they looked at me and they said, "Well, am I right?" And there was a different sort of look in their eye, because they knew that they were right and they wanted it to be confirmed. I said, "Well, you're right." So then their eyes light up. So that's an amazing feeling to sort of put good evidence-based teaching into practice, and you see it come to fruition. And so I'll stick with teaching.
So do you find it at all challenging being dyslexic and teaching? Do you have strategies that support you in the workplace?
Do I? Yeah, it's a massive challenge, being dyslexic. Obviously, you're dyslexic for life. And so I'll go off the track a little bit, but there's the book is Sally Shae's Overcoming Dyslexia. So she's from Yale University, the Dyslexic and Creativity Center. And so she's got, in the beginning of her book, sort of stories about what dyslexics feel like. And there was this one person, George, and he talked about dyslexia being this sort of the beast that's always stalking him. And so for me, going back as a child, I sort of can relate to that image of beast stalking you. And I wrote a blog post of like being dyslexic in a school as a child was like trying to fight a fire-breathing dragon it's always stalking you, but you've only got like a bin lid for a shield, and you've got a toothpick as your sword, and you just have to try and battle and battle and battle. So that doesn't answer your question, but
no, but I understand what you're saying. I describe it in my book that I've just written. It's like the black dog that kind of follows you.
And it just bats you around. And what we need is to have someone to come along like this wizard, and the wizard's like someone who understands dyslexia and the alphabetic principle, and that going from simple code to complex code, and cumulatively building those skills, developing the child's phonemic awareness and matching that to graphemes, the phonemes to the graphemes, and so they can become fluent, and then they're well armed and they can take on that dragon. And it's always going to be there as a dyslexic, but you're better armed and you're better prepared. And so getting back to like in the workplace, I guess I've done a lot of teaching of myself through teaching others, through the experience I gained in 2017 when I did the multisensory structured language course with the Institute of Multisensory Structured Language and Australian Dyslexia Association. So that's really helped me, and I think probably the last 3 years is when I've started to understand myself as what's dyslexia, and what's the impact it's had on my life, and then knowing that, how can I work through things. So I think I heard you on a podcast talk about how you're always losing your wallet and your keys and things like that. So for me, it's like now I make lists, and I stick the lists up on the board, and now I'm very specific about where I put things, so everything's got its place. But because the organisation of a dyslexic brain can be a little bit scattered or challenging, you've got to acknowledge that and go, all right, well, how can I improve? So it was a couple of years ago, I made a New Year's resolution that I wasn't going to lose my keys, and I haven't broken that for 2 years, because I had this cup that I was given as a Kris Kringle, at the end of year. It was like, a little world's best teacher thing. And so I put that down in the one place, and whenever I come in, I just put my keys there. So, but that's sort of, so one of the teachers at my school, when I was telling her this story, she said, but now I've seen that flow into the rest of your life because you're more organised and you've got things going. And so it's helping at school, but so I've overcome a lot to get to the point where I can teach, and I'm actually really good at spelling and reading now, because that's all I think about. Well, it's not all I think about, but decoding and syllable types. So it's actually really helped me. But I guess your brain is still working that bit harder than a neurotypical brain, like something like 5 times harder for a child. So it can be a tiring experience, but I mean, it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. There's no easy way to get around dyslexia. You just you need the right support, and when you've got that, and when you can thrive. So I feel like I'm doing pretty well.
I completely agree. If you've got the right support, we really can thrive. And so how's it played out within your family that one of your children, did you say your son has dyslexia as well?
Yeah.
So was he identified early, and how does that work as a family dynamic, having some dyslexics and some not dyslexics?
Yes. So so right now, I think it's we don't always think about the impact on the non-dyslexic people in your family, and so how they have to maybe adjust the way that they speak to you, or because especially after, more like you're saying, at a day at school, it's tiring anyway being a teacher. But when you come home, you mightn't have quite that headspace, and if like being dyslexic, it takes that little bit longer to process things. So just communicating with non-dyslexics in the family that maybe you need that little bit of extra space or time to process before before they continue on with the next thought. So so when was he identified? Probably it was about he was in year 2. But then again, so even being dyslexic, I didn't know what to do, because obviously back in my day, nobody knew really what to do, and there were a lot of different things that don't work. So, this trial and error, and then it was finally I saw a documentary, an Australian documentary, Outside the Square, and that sort of started to light the fire that, oh, hang on, there's a different way to teach. And so that's what we did. But it wasn't really until he was in year 6 that I did the multisensory structured language course, and I just thought, wow, I could have gone back in time and known more earlier, could have intervened earlier, but you do the best with the knowledge you have at the time. So, but we're still working, and
And being picked up young, as you said before, is so important, because then you can access that early intervention.
Oh, exactly.
So much harder.
And the interesting thing is, so what works for dyslexic children works for everybody. It's just dyslexics will need more repetition. But actually, so it's look at the reading science. I'm probably going to mispronounce some names here, but the French neurocognitive science, Stanislav Dehaene, and if you read his book, I think it's called Reading in the Brain, and you can watch his videos about how the brain actually works. We all have a similar brain that has to learn to read in the same way. It's just, unfortunately for dyslexics, they've got that weakness in the phonological module of the brain, which makes identifying those individual sounds, those 44 individual sounds, the phonemes in English, really difficult. And being able to manipulate those sounds and then match those sounds to symbols is the challenge. So, but it's still the same sort of pathway that we have to learn to read. So if you can really teach everybody the alphabetic principle and teach it really well, and by that I mean mapping sounds to symbols, and when they get, and for decoding, and then for encoding, going from sound to symbol and symbol to sound for the decoding, everybody benefits. So being able to identify the graphemes on the page, the letter combinations, match those to the phonemes, the sounds, and then blend them together rapidly, word level reading, that benefits everybody. Understanding the structure of the English language, the syllables and syllable types, and how to break words into syllables, blending and segmenting, all of that stuff is vital for everybody to be able to learn to read. So that explicit systematic teaching of the alphabetic code, it's vital for that 10% of dyslexic kids, and that next 10% of kids who may have some sort of symptoms of dyslexia too. So that 20% of kids, that's really vital, but it's helpful for the next group of kids, and the group of children above them. It's actually vital there too. So explicit systematic teaching of the alphabetic code is vital for dyslexic kids, and it's helpful for all kids, and it's harmful to none. And you're teaching to the to the actual science of reading. So
I think that's what we want, isn't it? Inclusive learning
environment where
everyone succeeds. And no one's left behind.
And just express, just systematically and cumulatively building on the alphabetic code and skills, so everyone gets a really great solid foundation in those decoding and encoding skills, to free up the cognitive workload, the cognitive load, so that you can actually think about what you're reading. So what works for dyslexic kids works for everybody. So Yeah.
And that's a great message to lead us into Dyslexic Awareness Month as we wrap up, and the importance.
Yeah, and it's Dyslexic Awareness Day too today.
Yes, it is. I get so confused because everywhere around the country and around the world, there's different days. So for me, it's easier just to have the whole month.
I could have the month,
Just have the whole month.
And it's not just important to be aware of dyslexia, but be aware of how you can help. Because if you help dyslexic kids, you help everybody. And that's a really important message.
And I think, that's a great message to wrap up on. Are there any other things you'd like to talk about Dyslexic Awareness Month, or the work that you do before we wrap up this evening?
No. So if you're out there and you've got concerns, or you've got more questions, you can go to, well, there's obviously Dear Dyslexia, which is fantastic, and there's other organisations like Code Red. I'm wearing my red T-shirt here. So Code Red, the Australian Dyslexia, there we go, Association, and that they've got lots of stuff on the website there, information about dyslexia and how you can identify and help dyslexic children. So yeah, obviously YouTube, come and check out Rocking Dan Teaching Man on YouTube. Lots of educational songs to help everybody learn, and it's always a lot of fun. So don't forget to click on the subscribe button. You can have a cup of tea with Rocking Dan as well if you want, or a hot chocolate or anything like that. So check out Rocking Dan Teaching Man. Check out Code Red, Dear Dyslexia, the Australian Dyslexia website also. There's lots of information. So yeah, and anyone's got any questions, happy to help. It's been a great privilege to take something like dyslexia, which I have, with a challenge, and then sort of build knowledge around how to help other dyslexic children, and it started me on the journey of going down the big rabbit hole of the science of reading, and that's been really important. So understanding the alphabetic principle, understanding orthographic mapping, so how we permanently store words. So it's been great to be able to understand that, and then be able to mentor others and other teachers. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I've learned so much this evening about all the work you're doing, which has been wonderful. And for everyone that's watching tonight, you can head to the Dear Dyslexic Foundation to find out more about Dan. We'll be uploading this video over the next few days. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Please remember to go red in support for Dyslexic Awareness Month. There'll be different activities running across the country from all the different organisations that Dan just mentioned, including ourselves. So please stay tuned and stay well, everybody. And thank you again, Dan, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Shae.
Wonderful to talk to you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.